Latest in the Tata Steel's pullout from the United Kingdom. Stephen Kinnock, the Labour Party MP of Port Talbot, where Tata Steel owns the largest plant in the United Kingdom, is standing with Sanjay Suri. Over to you, Sanjay.
We are here at Port Talbot, and that's the Tata Steel plant right here. And you look at the smoke and you think these days that's £1 million a day going up in smoke. But really, is it that bad, and does it have to be that bad? We are joined by Mr. Stephen Kinnock, the MP for the area. Is there hope here?
Yes, absolutely. We remain optimistic that a reasonable and very reliable buyer will emerge in the coming days and weeks. I remain confident that that will happen. The official sales process will launch on Monday, and then I think we'll see some very interesting proposals coming forward. There's potentially a very interesting management buyout option out there and a number of other interested parties. So we remain cautiously optimistic.
There have been reports that the losses have been coming down. Is that a sign of some hope?
Yeah, absolutely. My understanding is that some of the measures that have been taken against the dumping of Chinese steel are beginning to bite, and also the energy-intensive industries compensation package has finally come in, and so that's beginning to have a positive impact on the numbers. Of course, there's still a long way to go and some very tough decisions that still need to be made, but the priority now is to find a reliable buyer and to find that buyer as quickly as possible.
But that buyer will inherit a lot of liabilities, not least the pensions. Is it possible really and realistically to handle all that?
Well, my view at the moment is that Tata Steel is contractually obliged to fulfill its obligations on the pension scheme, and I understand that that will continue to be the case. Now, it may well be that the government and Tata Steel and the new buyer are able to negotiate some kind of arrangement where the government takes on some of the liability, Tata Steel and the new buyer. There should hopefully be a way through that problem, but let's not forget that Tata Steel is the contractually obliged party in this case.
There have been some suggestions of moving from a blast furnace to an arc furnace. Now, what exactly does that mean for production and for jobs?
Well, the blast furnace is the heart of the steel making process here in Port Talbot, and it accounts for, well, the heavy end, as we call it. So the blast furnace and the closely connected parts of the process account for about 60% of the workforce. What goes into the blast furnace gives you a huge amount of flexibility in terms of the steel that you can produce at the end of the process, and also our customer base here, all of the the Nissans, the Hondas, the Jaguar Land Rovers that rely on the high-end, top-quality steel that comes out of this steelworks. At the moment, that is set up for a blast furnace model. So the big question I have is, what impact would replacing a blast furnace with an electric arc furnace have on jobs, and also what impact would it have on the integrity of the order book? We must retain the customer base here for the Port Talbot Steelworks. So Mr. Gupta has come forward with some interesting proposals, but I think there are at least as many questions as answers in what he's suggesting.
You've spoken of some possibly remedial government measures. Could these include, in some form, a government buyout?
Well, what we know is that the British government has been a complete shambles on this for years now. They've failed to deal with the dumping of Chinese steel. They've taken too long to help on energy. They've taken too long to do anything about procurement and making sure that British steel is at the heart of our infrastructure project. So it is time that they woke up. It is time that they act, and if that means acting so that if we get to a stage where we're unfortunately not able to find a buyer, then I think the British government needs to be able to step in and ready to do so with a temporary, time-bound nationalisation, just in order to buy more time for the right buyer to come forward. But the priority is to find a buyer as quickly as possible so that nationalisation isn't necessary. But given the abject failure of the British government over the last 3-4 years in this case, I do think they have to absolutely be ready to step in and help.
To facilitate a buyout and given the liabilities, would an option be to sell it for free?
Yes, I think that Tata Steel should be ready to look at that option. I mean, my understanding is that Tata Steel want to get out, and they want to sell because the costs of a full closure would be enormous. I mean, just think of the environmental liabilities that you would have closing down a plant like that. You know, closing the blast furnace, the environmental clear up, the restoration of the land. That is a liability that I think Tata Steel do not wish to carry. So I think they're ready to do whatever it takes to make the sale happen. They have been, you know, fair play to Tata Steel over the years. They've invested a lot of money in the UK steel industry. It hasn't worked for them. They've taken a choice to move on. The key now is for us to move on and find that responsible buyer that we really must find. And it's up to Tata Steel to give us the time to do that as well. It's the Tata Steel and the British government need to work in partnership, because this place is the beating heart of my constituents here. It's the beating heart of our economy, and it's through the supply chain as well. The entire UK steel industry, we're looking here at potentially 40,000 well-paid jobs. So this is of massive economic significance. We need the government to step up to the plate, and we need Tata Steel to hold its nerve.
There have been some suggestions also for management worker buyout. Is that on the cards?
I'm very attracted to the idea of a management buyout, management worker buyout, however that might look. Clearly, the big question there is finding the right investors. I know that some conversations are taking place, you know, and we've got to find the right financial backing. The sales process opens on Monday. That's when Tata Steel will open up their books, and any potential buyer can come in and have a look at what the challenges are and what the opportunities are. And I think that a management buyout where you've got real expertise that believes in the plan, that's based on a turnaround plan also that keeps the heavy end moving forward, but based also on the kind of investment that's needed to build the heavy end up. And one of the very interesting ideas with the turnaround plan is to create a power generator which feeds off the gases that come off the blast furnace. If you could do that, you would be saving something like £20 million a year.
But Tata couldn't do that?
Tata come to the view that it was time to move on, and they've taken their decision. I'm not going to speak for them on their behalf. I was in Mumbai. I had very positive and constructive meetings in some ways with Mr. Chatterjee. In other ways, of course, it was a very disappointing result. But he made it clear to us that that was the decision of Tata Steel. But I think there's a big opportunity here with the right investment, with the right backing, a fresh start based on a management buyout. You could actually achieve great things, and this could be the opening of a new chapter for the British steel industry. So let's stay optimistic, let's stay upbeat, let's hold our nerve, and let's find the right buyer.
Finally, that certainly is the best case scenario, and it's not a pleasant question, but what is the worst case scenario?
Well, the doomsday scenario is a hard outright closure of the plant. I think that's a very bad scenario for Tata Steel because of the environmental liabilities. But apart from that, it's an absolutely devastating scenario for the people of my constituency. Every neighbourhood, every family, every community in this area is connected directly to that steelworks, and it would have a devastating effect on the British economy. And let's not forget, steel is a foundation industry. It's in the houses we live in, the offices we work in, the cars that we drive, the cutlery that we eat our meals with, the bridges that we cross. So this is something that isn't just an isolated discussion here. We're talking about something which has an impact right across the economy, which is why the behaviour of the British government on this so far has been so unacceptable. They are playing with the lives of thousands and thousands of steelworkers and their families, but also something that would have a huge knock-on effect through the whole British economy. So let's make sure now that everybody rolls up their sleeves and finds a solution and finds a good way forward.